For the first time, I refused my father, telling him my hard-earned bonus wasn't for bailing out my stepbrother's half-baked dreams. There was a heat in my chest, a strange mix of fear and relief, as if I'd finally stepped out of the shadows. The echo of my father's voice still haunts me. I felt it again that Sunday afternoon, sun-warmed pattern stretching across the living room, as he spoke, his voice full of expectation, drowning out my pride. The promotion I'd earned, those gritty late nights, should have been celebrated. It was my victory. But there he was, framing my success as a resource for my stepbrother's newest harebrained venture. A familiar pit hollowed within my stomach, guilt entangled with rebellion. Always the dutiful child, I had carried his burdens, dreams cast aside, needs unmet. Yet deep within, an unfamiliar resolve surged. Maybe it was time to finally listen to that persistent whisper urging me to break free, to claim something for myself at last. The dinner table was a battlefield in disguise, papered over with the clinking of cutlery and the soft hum of forced cheerfulness. Sitting in my father's pristine dining room, the air felt charged, the tension verging on acrid. My stepbrother, Darren, was at the far end, flicking glances at me like I was the next sacrificial lamb. I could already feel the emotional manipulation winding its way through his mind like a snake in the grass. I heard about the promotion, my father said, his voice a practiced blend of pride and calculation, though I could almost taste the acid beneath. Every word was planned, precise. Quite an achievement, considering. His tone sat heavy on the table, everyone's eyes twitching toward mine, waiting for my response like they were spectators at an unsanctioned fight. I nodded, mute, caught between desire and dread, held in place by family ties that felt more like chains. Darren shifted in his chair, nodding along like he was at some Sunday sermon. Yeah, that's great, really great, he added, his enthusiasm wrapping around me like smoke, too thick to breathe. He glanced at our father, an orchestrated small talk, the prelude before the coup de grace. Actually, it ties in perfectly with that business plan we discussed, Dad. And there it was his cue. My father's eyes zeroed in, fastening onto me with an intensity that felt like a vice tightening around my throat. I was thinking, he said slowly, as if savoring each syllable, the bonus you'll receive could give Darren the push he needs. My stomach lurched, twisting into knots that threatened to double me over. Each word felt like a calculated assault, a strategic chess move in a game only he understood. We're family, after all, he added, with a smile that felt more like a scalding brand pressed against my skin. His eyes bore into me, expectant, as if the disappointment he anticipated was already my fault. His gaze was relentless, the silent communication across the table pounding in my ears louder than any raised voice. I could feel my own ambition, my hard-won triumphs, slipping further into the shadows, swallowed by the umbrella of duty demanded by those blood ties. Darren leaned forward, his face a manufactured mask of earnestness. I mean, it's an investment, really. It'll all come back, probably even triple. You know. His insistence tasted bitter, a tang of betrayal mingled with the iron tang of blood as I bit down hard on the inside of my cheek. I'll have to think about it, I managed to push out, my voice tight, squeezed out from somewhere deep within me. But beneath the surface, my self-worth simmered dangerously, pounding against the confines of my skin. I wasn't sure how long I could keep it all contained, this battle between the old, ingrained sense of duty and a burgeoning need to break free, to be seen as more than a familial ATM. Something had to give, and soon. It was just a matter of time. The creak of my apartment door sounded like the unfolding of regrets, though it announcing my return with eerie familiarity. I kicked my boots off, shedding them as if they were the guilt clinging to my soul. Outside, the world hummed on, oblivious to the war waging inside me. I sank onto the couch, the comforting creases cradling me, offering solace I couldn't seem to find anywhere else. The coffee table was cluttered with remnants of things left undone, a testament to the constant rush I called life. Among the chaos, my stepbrother's business plan lay unfurled, sheets still crisp, urging patience and understanding. His name flashed frequently across the pages, like the ghost of his dreams haunting every scribbled promise. I ran a finger along the margins, tracing destiny like it was a tangible thing. Each flaw, I noted, felt like a fault line, delicate, quick to crumble, yet loaded with the potential to reshape landscapes. Still, beneath it all, the dreams held a stubborn glow. They spoke of ambition and possibility, a vision he'd poured his heart into, maybe more than I ever had into anything of my own. The air felt heavy, pressing, thick with the weight of what I owed him. With what we'd been through. A part of me wanted to close the folder and never open it again, let him chase his dreams into the clouds without my better judgment dragging him back to earth. But then came that insistent voice, usually buried deep, emerging now with defiant strength. When will you choose you? My hands trembled around the plan as I clutched it tighter, the logical part of me screaming to rain reality down upon his castles in the sky. Yet, a rebellious undercurrent bubbled, hot and fierce, a new sensation. It felt foreign and yet intoxicating, whispering promises of freedom and self-worth. What if, for once, this wasn't about them, about duty, but about something greater bubbling up within me? In the quiet of my apartment, the guilt felt suffocating, yet my heart pleaded with a soft insistence, for once, choose yourself. My stepbrother's dreams seemed to flutter on the paper, calling me back to the path I'd always taken. But my resolve, shaky yet present, flickered like a candle caught in a draft, wavering yet determined not to extinguish. I leaned back, exhaling a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. I was drifting to the muted cityscape beyond my window, lights twinkling like possibilities amidst the night. For once, the idea of stepping out of the shadows, playing a lead role in my own story, didn't seem so unthinkable. A flash of clarity, sharp as a lightning strike, coursed through me. Maybe it was time to decide, fully, wholeheartedly, to carve a space where my dreams could breathe alongside those of others. In that solitary moment, a silent promise began to take form, gentle but resolute, quietly steering me toward whatever came next. The cafe has a comfortable hum to it, the kind that could easily lull you into believing the world outside doesn't exist for a while. I see my friend, Emma, waiting at the corner table, her fingers tapping an absent beat against a lukewarm cup of coffee, her eyes scanning the room until they land on mine. I envy her calm. She stands to greet me, offering a hug that feels like a grounding force, and I sink into it longer than necessary before we slip back into our seats. You look exhausted, she says, not unkindly, as she hands me the latte she ordered, knowing my preference without asking. Yeah, well, life's been a handful. My words come out more bitter than I intend, and I wince, hating how true my joke sounds. The familiar aroma of coffee doesn't soothe me as it usually does. Instead, it feels like a reminder of moments taken for granted. Emma doesn't flinch, she just nods, her brow knitting lightly with curiosity and concern. So, tell me everything. For a moment, I consider pretending, just plastering over reality with a coat of everyday chatter. But this is Emma, who knows when to push and when to let me stumble through the dark of my own thoughts. It's all just. It's been overwhelming, I admit, each word a heavy drop into the shared space between us. I don't even know if what I'm chasing is something I truly want, or something I've been told to want. You ever feel that way? Her eyes don't waver. All the time. But questioning it is part of figuring it out, you know? I trace a finger along the edge of my cup, the warmth just reaching my skin. I just feel like I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Maybe I've never really known. Emma leans forward, her voice dropping into an intimate, conspiratorial whisper. But isn't that okay? Isn't not knowing where you start to find out what really matters to you? I hold her gaze, feeling a cautious hope kindling in the pit of my stomach, a flicker trying hard to blaze. Her steady, unyielding support wraps around me like a lifeline, offering clarity. They didn't minimize my struggle, didn't belittle my fear, instead, they handed me back the mirror I'd long avoided facing. Emma smiles softly, patient lines creasing at the corners of her eyes. You've always had your dreams, even if they got buried under all that noise. Maybe it's time you listen to them again. A silence stretches between us, but it's a comfortable one, woven with understanding. In this quiet, lit by the soft glow of acceptance and a hint of something unfamiliar and thrilling, resolve, I let myself dream of possibilities. And in that small cafe, surrounded by the comforting murmur of life going on, I begin to see it, the profound simplicity of taking a step toward myself. The hum of the vending machine filled the emptiness of the break room, a soft, monotonous presence that did nothing to calm the storm churning within me. I sat there, fingers tracing the edge of a worn table, eyes unfocused, mind drifting far beyond the confines of these walls. My decision weighed heavily, each thought a stone added to the load that pressed against my chest, unyielding and suffocating. Elaine walked in, her presence a familiar comfort. She carried with her a rare kind of wisdom, one forged in the fires of her own trials, someone I had long admired, if only for the authenticity of her battle scars. She settled across from me, an unspoken understanding lingering in the space between us. You look like you've seen a ghost, she finally said, her voice soft, designed to invite rather than interrogate. Feels like it, I murmured, eyes on my restless hands. This about your big decision? She ventured, leaning back, her gaze piercing yet gentle. I nodded, unsure how many more layers of my own fear and uncertainty I could strip away without unraveling entirely. Elaine studied me for a moment, the room falling into a thoughtful silence. Then, with a kind of deliberation that tugged at my raw edges, she began, "You know, I've been where you are. Different choices, same crossroads." There was a gravity in her words, a silent testament to battles fought and lessons earned. I found myself leaning in, every nerve attuned to what she might share. "There's this job I took once," she continued, her eyes distant with memory. "Did it for all the wrong reasons. Obligation, fear, expectation. Thought it was what I should want, not what I actually did. Spent years feeling trapped, locked in a routine that killed me a little every day." Her honesty was a jolt, clear and unflinching. Each word unraveled, echoing those doubts I had buried so deep I could barely distinguish them from the bedrock of my identity. Their words were like a ghostly echo, resonating deep within. "Regret," they said, "is its own prison." My own fears spilled out, unconfined and raw. What if this decision is the wrong one? What if it all implodes and I can't? Elaine cut in, her voice now a steady anchor. "Remember, it's not about avoiding failure. It's about facing the fear of it." Her gaze held mine, refusing to let me shy away from that uncomfortable truth. In that moment, I saw my own reflection in her journey, each regret, each unfulfilled dream a brick in the prison she spoke of. Something shifted within me, recalibrating, realigning. As we sat there, surrounded by the flotsam of cold coffee cups and stale air, I felt it, a thread of determination weaving inexorably through the chaos. A tentative but undeniable resolve beginning to solidify, taking root in the fertile ground of my uncertainty. The question was no longer if I could make the decision. It was when I would find the courage to honor it. The office was unremarkable, white walls, a fake plant drooping in a corner, and a desk with an ocean of paperwork. I sat holding a pen, the weight of it grounding me like an anchor, but my mind was a storm. A fluorescent light buzzed above, casting a sterile light that seemed to strip the room of warmth, leaving it bare and honest. This was it. There was no going back once the ink touched paper. The advisor, a man with a kind but professional demeanor, sat across from me. He explained the options in a voice that rolled smoothly over the edges of anxiety gnawing at my thoughts. "So this is your bonus," he gestured towards a neatly typed sheet, a roadmap of figures that held my fears and hopes snugly within their columns. I nodded, or at least I think I did. My chest felt tight, a vice of doubt gripping my ribs as he continued to speak. "Investing in yourself, taking this step, it's significant. You're choosing to believe in your potential." His words were encouraging, yet they spoke to a part of me I hadn't dared believe in before. The courage it took just to be in this room felt monumental. The pen hovered above the line, and I felt a prickle of sweat on my palms, as if my body knew the gravity of the moment my mind was still grappling with. I glanced at him, searching his face for assurance or maybe just an anchor to steady the quiver in my resolve. His expression was steady, tranquil, and somehow that tranquility entered me, pooling in my veins, pushing back the tide of uncertainty. "I know it's scary," he said, a knowing smile softening his features. "But it's also incredibly brave." The air seemed to rush out of my lungs once more, this time, a deliberate release. Breathing consciously, I felt the coiled tension inside me unwind, like a spring long pressed. The decision was no longer nebulous, a looming phantom. It was real, defined, a silhouette against the landscape of my future. As I signed the papers, the ink drawing the boundaries of a new chapter, a surge of liberation swept over me, tinged with an unfamiliar but exhilarating scent of freedom. It was as if the lines traced by my hand were corridors through which not just money but fear, hope, and a newfound faith danced together in reluctant harmony. The papers stacked neatly back into his folder, an act of quiet finality. "Congratulations," he said, standing to shake my hand. His grip was firm, warm, a promise silently woven into the mundane gestures of formality. I rose too, lighter somehow, as if the earth had shifted, and I was finally aligned with its axis. Walking out, the door's quiet click behind me was another punctuation of change. Ahead, the hallway stretched, a passage bathed in the gentle glow of an unfamiliar horizon. Steps carried me forward, buoyed by the voice inside whispering, "Now, it's yours to shape." The door creaks as I push it open, the familiar scent of my childhood home wrapping around me, a deceptive comfort. My father sits in his usual chair, newspaper spread like a barrier, though we both know this is no shield. His eyes lift, sharp as shards, already making cuts. I take a deep breath, letting the tension settle in, a feral thing ready to roar. I stand in the living room, heart pounding like a war drum in my chest. The walls seem to close in, the shadowed corners of the room witnesses to years of unspoken words and swallowed pride. I'm not here for a handout. I start, voice steady, surprising myself with its evenness. It's as if all the years of submission and silence have finally found their voice. He folds the paper deliberately, a ritualistic act, and places it aside. This is the part where his silence is loudest, a tactic to unravel me, but I cling to the words I've rehearsed in my mind. I've decided to invest in myself, I continue, each word a pebble tossed into the pool of our stagnant relationship, ripples of defiance spreading out. My father's eyes narrow, a warning shot across the bow, but I press on. My future needs to be mine, I say, feeling the heat rise in my chest now, a fire that doesn't burn but fortifies. His scoff is a familiar sound, like a door creaking shut in the distance, a decision made in a heartbeat. And where does that leave the family? He demands, fingers tapping a relentless, accusatory rhythm on the arm of his chair. The air smells faintly of the coffee neither of us will drink, cold and forgotten on the table between us. For the first time, my voice didn't tremble. It resonated with the clarity of conviction I'd long yearned for. I meet his gaze, unwavering. It doesn't mean I'm abandoning anyone, Dad, but it does mean I'm allowing myself the chance to be something more. The words spill forth, each infused with a strength I didn't know I possessed. His eyes flicker, just for a moment, an almost imperceptible sign of acknowledgement or perhaps the ghost of respect. I can see him struggling, battling decades' worth of dominance intertwined with an unspoken fear of change. I have watched this same battle unfold in others, but here, in the thick of it, my courage feels like armor. But he simply leans back, shrugging a dismissal as expected. The silence between us stretches, not oppressive, but filled with a kind of liberation. For the first time, I'm not begging for approval, nor am I left searching for his validation like a child lost in a shadow. I turn towards the door, my footsteps slow, deliberate, each step away from this house that has both nurtured and suffocated me. As I leave, I feel the moment doesn't signify an end, but rather the first real beginning of something new. My father's words hang in the air like the smoke from his ever-present cigar, curling and twisting, searching for a place to settle before dispersing into nothingness. I stand in the living room, the walls closing in, feeling every tick of my racing pulse. His disappointment is a tangible force, pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. I can't meet his gaze. It's too much, too raw, the anger creeping below the surface, held in a tight leash by years of practiced restraint. You think you're clever, don't you? His voice cuts through the silence like a cold wind that finds a crack in a window, stabbing through flesh and bone. I finally look up, catching the glint of hurt in his eyes, barely masked by the veneer of practiced authority. I don't feel clever. I feel like someone who's standing on the edge of a precipice, the ground unstable beneath their feet. My stepbrother sits in the corner, his eyes glued to his phone. The silence between us is vast, a chasm that swallows everything whole. His silence feels like judgment, though he hasn't even glanced in my direction. It's almost worse than my father's words because it's devoid of context, a blank slate upon which I can project any interpretation I choose. In the end, silence can be an expression, too. It tells you what someone isn't willing to say. The room is charged with betrayal, both real and imagined, like an undercurrent of electricity sparking whenever our eyes meet. It thrums beneath my skin, a restless pulse that refuses to be ignored. I wonder if he knows, if he can feel it too. The weight of my decision crashes in, relentless, unforgiving. I told myself it was the right thing, standing up for myself, carving out this piece of freedom. But this cost, this unloading of years of expectation and living under those heavy eyes, by God, I didn't anticipate how much it would sting. I take a deep breath, the air slicing at my throat, and I find a sliver of strength wedged between the barbs of my fear. Standing up is supposed to feel like victory, isn't it? But instead, it's left me stranded in no man's land, the air thick with tension and unspoken grievances. The silence is alive now, a towering wall of emptiness. It hurts, yes, but it unfurls in me a strange sense of liberation as if in this void, I can finally begin to shape my own narrative. The silence was a chasm, I want to tell him, sometimes myself, later, a vast emptiness that, despite its pain, felt oddly liberating. But words fail me, caught in the throat, and instead, here we stand, prisoners of our own making, waiting for the inevitable to happen, whatever that may be. The house is still, like a frozen photograph that no longer holds warmth or movement. I sit in the corner of the empty living room, my back pressed against the wall, feeling the coolness seeping through my shirt. Shadows creep across the floor as the sunlight fades, casting the room in a soft, melancholy gloom. It's in this quiet solitude that I can feel the enormity of my decision settling like a heavy cloak around me. The silence here is different, dense, and full of echoes of the life I've stepped away from. Memories flowed up unbidden, laughter bubbling over a shared meal, whispered secrets between siblings. And yet, there's something undeniably liberating in the silence. For once, it's just me, without the weight of expectations pressing down, without the conflicting voices clashing in my head. I close my eyes, trying to map out the future, but all I can see is a vast, uncharted expanse. No waypoints, no signposts, just this choice I've made hanging heavily in the air. Freedom, the kind I'd longed for, stands right on the cusp of this moment, but so does fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of loneliness, fear of regret. With each breath, I try to quell the rising tide of anxiety. I place my hand over my heart, feeling its steady beat, a reminder that I'm here, now, in this body, in this space. There's a strength in my chest that I rarely acknowledge, a quiet determination that whispers I can forge a path out of this wilderness. Despite the ache of familial fracture, a small, steady spark of hope flickers within, the promise of what could be. Opening my eyes, I let the familiar shapes of the room anchor me. Every piece of furniture, every photograph, is loaded with memories, yet they feel like relics from a life that no longer fits. The floorboards creak softly as I rise, hesitant but resolute, each step a gentle farewell to things once cherished. The decision to leave had always felt insurmountable, like climbing a mountain that stretches into infinity. But standing on the other side now, I begin to see the contours of possibility. It doesn't erase the pain, nothing ever will, but it hints at a kind of peace that seems just within reach. Moving towards the window, I let the cool evening breeze wash over me, carrying with it the scent of rain-soaked earth. It mingles with the bittersweet taste of my tears, forming an unexpected comfort. Outside, the world pulses with life, indifferent to my turmoil, yet inviting me into its embrace. As the first stars prick the sky, I whisper a silent vow to myself, to embrace this new beginning with all its challenges and uncertainties. With a deep breath, I turn away from the past and step towards whatever comes next, feeling the fragile yet undeniable weight of hope nestled within my chest, persistent and alive. The sun filtered through the half-open blinds, spilling fragmented light onto the wooden floor. I stood there, still and silent, letting the world wake up around me. The air was thick with morning dew, and the smell of fresh coffee wafted from the kitchen. In the quiet, I could almost hear the echoes of every decision that led me here, each one a stepping stone laid carefully, deliberately, across the chasm of my past. I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the mirror hung haphazardly by the door. My eyes seemed clearer, the weight behind them lightened since the last time I really looked. The scars of former battles were still etched into the lines of my face, but they were now more like a map than a burden, a testament to where I'd been, not where I was going. The room around me was sparse but filled with things I had chosen, a thrifted bookshelf overflowing with stories, an old armchair that threatened to unravel with every creak, and the delicate plant I'd managed to keep alive longer than anticipated. Each item, no matter how small, was a marker of this new life I was building, one marked by intention rather than obligation. I pulled on a sweater, its fabric soft against my skin, and stepped outside onto the small balcony connected to my new apartment. The city hummed with its usual morning chaos below, but up here, it felt removed, as if I were in a sanctuary all my own. The sounds and smells and movements of life unfolded, but their urgency no longer dictated my pace. For the first time, I felt in harmony with the world rather than hurried along by it. As I stepped forward, I mused aloud to myself. Each footfall felt like a quiet rebellion against the shadows of yesteryears, a march toward a life of my own making. The words hung in the cold air like a promise, giving weight to their truth. I leaned against the railing, the metal cool but reassuring beneath my palms. The memories were there, persistent as ever, but they no longer suffocated. Instead, they served as reminders of how far I'd come, the battles fought and wounds endured. They were stepping stones now, providing guidance rather than obstruction. I had learned to use them to construct rather than destroy. A gentle buzz interrupted my thoughts, a notification on my phone, a message from a new friend I'd met in a community class. A warmth spread through me, a flicker of belonging in this new chapter. I could feel the shift, both subtle and profound, the transformation from a life defined by necessity to one sculpted by my own hands and desires. The past lingered, yes, but it no longer had dominion. The unknown might loom ahead, but fear was absent, replaced by a curious anticipation. I smiled, taking a deep breath. Today was another step, another quiet rebellion manifest. And with that, I turned back inside, ready to embrace whatever this new day might hold.